wash our clothes. Well, before I married Joe, I was living alone in a tiny apartment, worrying about nobody but myself. And I knew, where I wanted to go. I wanted to finish my master's degree, become a teacher, and go for my doctorate. Settling down was not part of my plan. But then I fell in love with Joe, and I fell in love with the boys. And my plans faded like road signs in the rearview mirror of our station wagon. Then, seemingly overnight, I was a wife and a Senate spouse and a mom to two brave little boys who had just lost their mother a few years earlier. So when Bo pulled me aside that day, I said to him, "What do you mean, am I ever going to wash your clothes? I just washed them last week." Well, Bo gathered every bit of 8-year-old tact he had, and he said, "Well, you probably should do it every day." So when we follow our hearts, we often end up miles from the carefully crafted routes that we had hoped to take. Love takes our maps and our compasses and just tosses them into the sea. No one knows that better than military families. Nobody knows it like you do. And when you imagine where your life would take you, you probably didn't think of moving every few years because your spouse had the PCS. You didn't know that you'd have to watch your daughter cry when the support services she relies on at school are hard to get. You didn't think you'd have to quit a job you wanted or take a job, that you didn't want because it was the only option left. And you had plans, you had lots of plans, but then you fell in love. So you made new plans. You became resilient. You built a family that can bend without breaking. You found sisters and brothers in those who share this journey with you. And you found joy in unexpected places. And that's what love does too. It makes us strong and gives us a refuge from the sorrows of life. It helps us grow past the challenges, like clover through the concrete. And yet, I know that maybe you're tired of always having to be resilient. If we could take some of your obstacles out of the way, if we could make sure that things like critical education support services are available to all children, military families would be able to do even more with your talent, your dedication, your leadership, and your skills. And your service members would benefit as well. Our entire military would be strengthened alongside you. Supporting your physical, social, and emotional health is a national security imperative. And that's what Joining Forces, the White House initiative to support military and veteran families, caregivers, and survivors, is all about. We're working to increase military spouse employment and entrepreneurship, ensure that you can get affordable quality daycare when you need it, and provide the education your children deserve. We're bringing together every part of our government and partners across sectors to make sure that you have what you need to thrive. Again and again in my travel to bases, I've heard that for families who have children with disabilities, it's so difficult to get the supports services that kids need when families move from duty station to duty station. But I've also heard that Joint Base San Antonio is doing something right. Joining Forces isn't a top-down effort. We do everything we do comes from listening to you. So I'm excited to see, to hear about what's working today. And Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Patty Barron, that was a mouthful, and I are going to take your stories back to DOD and the White House. So this is a community bound together by love. Love for your service members, love for your communities that you build with each other, and love for the country you serve. And it's time that our nation matches that devotion. So thank you for all that you do, and God bless our troops and their families. Thank you. I'm glad I don't have to sit on one of those little chairs.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I'm Rory Brocious. I'm the Executive Director of Joining Forces, so I work with Dr. Biden on her military families work. As she mentioned, our North Star is the experiences of our military families, and that's why you're all here today. As we do our work in Washington, it's so important for us to reflect what we are seeing and hearing from families about what they're experiencing on the ground. And so we're just thrilled to have all of you here today and to be joined by DASD Patty Barron. We'll just call you Mrs. Barron from now on, so we don't have to go through your full title. And so I'd love to turn it over to Patty for a few words.
Thank you so much, Rory. I really appreciate it. Dr. Biden, thank you so much for the invitation to join you today. It really means so much, and it's an honor. It's an honor. Yes, my portfolio at the Military Community and Family Policy Deputate is vast because we cover quality of life issues. So anything that impacts a military family usually goes through our deputate. And I take that job very, very seriously. And having been a military spouse myself for 30 years, following my soldier around for those 30, and I know I'm with the Air Force, so don't hold that against me. I do understand that this military life is not easy. It can be very challenging, gratifying, but also challenging. And for our families who have exceptional family members that they that are in their homes, that they're raising, or that they might be married to, or whatnot, those challenges can be even more. I want to tell you that we have been working very, very hard at MCNFP to standardize some of the EFMP processes that can be so challenging and cumbersome for our families. And I see you all shaking your head because I know you all know what we mean. And part of what we've done is we've worked very closely with the services to standardize enrollment, disenrollment, assignment, and respite care so that there will be a no wrong door approach no matter where a family finds themselves at any station. The last thing that I would say is that Military OneSource, which is also a program that I oversee, has a lot of resources. And I know it can be hard to kind of go through it, but if you would just take a moment to go there, maybe tonight, and look up EFMP and Me, you will find that there's a vast, vast number of resources there that can really help you with your journey. But as Rory said, the most important thing that we can do, the most important thing that I can do today is listen to you and listen to the experiences that you've had, because without you telling us what those experiences are, we can never really do right by you. And it is my promise to you that I will do the very best that I can to make sure that we make it a little bit more smoother for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty. Can we start with some introductions? I would love to start with Shaquilla, if you want to start, and then we'll move around the circle.
Hi, yes, thank you. My name is Shaquilla Duckworth. I am the Supervisory Training and Curriculum Specialist here at Joint Base San Antonio, and I oversee all of the training and education across our child and youth programs.
Hi, Jeremy Hilton. I'm a Navy veteran and an Air Force spouse. I have a 12-year-old and a young man and a 19-year-old Kate, who is part of the SMP, and I've been an advocate for as long as she's been alive, which is 19 years.
I'm Frances Anderson. I'm the chief at the Military and Family Readiness Center at Jbsa Fort Sam Houston. I'm also the wife of a retired Navy Master Chief and was a military spouse for 15 of the 28 years that he served.
Ma'am, I'm Simon First Class Rodriguez. I've been 17 years in the Army. I work on Fort Sam Houston, Army South. My son is 5 years old. He's been enrolled in EFMP since July 2017.
Good afternoon again, ma'am. My name is Amarili Silva. I work for 502nd Force Support Group as a Joint Base San Antonio-Skillbridge Program Coordinator. I was a former spouse for 18 years. My son, I have 3 children, but my son, who is 14, he is enrolled in EFMP since 2014.
Hi, my name is Coral Ramirez. I work for the EFMP Family Support Coordination Office here at Lackland. I'm also a military spouse. I've been a military spouse for almost 18 years, and we have been an EFMP family for 12 years now.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Kimberly Gilman. I'm the Assistant Flight Chief for Joint Base San Antonio for the 502nd FSS, and I oversee all the youth programs, the school-age before and after school programs, and the school liaison program.
Dr. Biden, welcome to San Antonio, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Gordon Hartman, and my official title is Morgan's dad. Morgan is a wonderful, wonderful young lady who's 28 years old, who suffers from physical and cognitive issues. And I had an opportunity about 17 years ago to sell my companies and get involved every day in working towards assisting our friends with special needs. And since that time, we have developed the first ultra-accessible, fully inclusive park that exists in the world right here in San Antonio. We've extended that to a water park, to a sports facility, to a camp. And I'm also going to be talking later about the Multi-Assistance Center, which I think can play a major role in assisting military families and everyone who has special needs individuals from birth all the way through their entire life. So thanks again for being here.
So I can see you're a super dad.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, so I think a great way to start would be with Francis. I'd love to hear you describe a little bit more about what EFMP is, so that folks who aren't as familiar can kind of get familiarized, but also some of the promising practices you're seeing here at Joint Base San Antonio.
Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We appreciate you being here to hear us. So the purpose of the Exceptional Family Member Program is to ensure that military families with special medical and educational needs get connected to the resources that they need so that they can have the support that they need to have an excellent quality of life while the service member is able to pursue a productive career in the military. The program is comprised of 3 components. The first is the medical component. They help us identify families who should be enrolled, and then they coordinate the enrollment process. The second piece of the program is the personnel piece. They work in assignments, making sure that families' special needs are taken into consideration as part of that assignment process. And then the third component of the program is the family support component, which is housed in Jbsa, in the Military and Family Readiness Center. At an Army installation, it would be Army Community Service. At a Navy installation, Fleet and Family Support. And the purpose of that piece of the program is really to facilitate smooth transitions into and out of communities for service members as they move, but also to make sure that they get connected to the resources that they need so that they can bloom wherever the military is planting them for the next couple of years. Here at Joint Base San Antonio, we have nearly 5,000 EFMP sponsors. And of course, each sponsor may have more than one family member enrolled in the program. Because we are a resource-rich community here in San Antonio, this is often one of just a few installations that might be appropriate for a family with intensive needs to be assigned. So we are very fortunate with the level of resources that we have. I think our best practice in this community is really modeled for us at the highest levels of leadership at our installation. And that is the investment that is made into developing community partnerships. It's really not enough to simply know where to hand a family off to. The most important thing is to develop relationships with those community resources, whether they're military resources or civilian resources. And so we do that in several ways. We invite community resource providers onto the installation, not just to provide education about what they do, although we do have them do that, but we also invite them for things like our Halloween Howldown, which is a big kind of social networking celebration that we have each year, But we invite community service providers on base because that gives families a member to meet and become familiar with that resource before they actually need it. And that makes it that much easier for them to receive it. One of the programs that we work with works around individualized education planning. In addition to providing early childhood intervention services, this organization, the Brighton Center, also does advocacy directly with families and will help families through individual consultation look at their IEPs, understand what their special education rights are, and help them game plan how to work with the school to make sure that the child is best served. And so we invite them into our community so that families will be comfortable with them.
That's so fantastic, thinking about how to bring in community services inside the gate as well. And I know, Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, you have a 5-year-old and you receive
Yes, ma'am.
EFMP services. I'd love to hear from you a bit about the challenges you faced, but also the support that you received here at Joint Base San Antonio.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you. It's an honor to be here, ma'am.
You're welcome.
So my son was born with a malformation on the brain. He has polymicrogyria. He has cerebral palsy that causes his physical limitations. I'm pleased with my chain of command here. I'm pleased with the EFMP program. I'm pleased with the school system as well in here. I was able to get the IEP, the Individual Education Plan for my son. Also, he's able to get his OT and PT at school, which he have to get several times a week. In the school, they have made several accommodations just to meet all his needs. I'm super happy and pleased with that. My only concern is the length of some assignments for military personnel, active duty military. When relocating, sometimes means regression, loss of progress, breaking service, even sometimes even the need for surgery. As like when I PCS over here, it was like 8 months without some of the care that he needed. I am aware that there is a stabilization process. I submitted for it. However, I only got extended for 12 months. And they say I cannot submit another stabilization packet for the same condition. It would be great in the future to see more opportunities and flexibility for military families to be able to stay at the same location for a longer period of time as needed, as I see it as a need, not really as a want. But overall, I'm super pleased with the Jbsa EFMP program, all the support, and everything that they have for EFMP families.
Well, it sounds like you've had a lot to deal with. I mean, it has to be difficult. And you're a single parent, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I mean, for a single parent, I think, you know, to try to handle life and a child with disabilities, I think is tough. And I think your request is reasonable. So, Patty, I mean, you know all the nuts and bolts of what's available and what's not available. I mean, doesn't it seem to make sense? Of course, I know that things don't always make sense that you think should make sense. But what hope can you offer him?
And so, Sergeant Rodriguez, although assignments and extension of assignments don't fall in my deputate, I am very familiar with the military personnel policy folks, and I will take this back to them as soon as I get to D.C. What I can tell you is that there's been a lot of discussion about allowing people to stay in one place for longer periods of time in a way that it won't jeopardize their career progression, but at the same time that it makes sense to leave you there for the reasons, especially the reasons that you just mentioned. So I promise you I'm taking that back because it doesn't make any sense not to.
I really appreciate that, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And when you mentioned your child receiving occupational therapy and services at school, it just reminds us how important our community schools are for our military families, as most kiddos are going to school off base. And so I'd love to turn to you, Kim, and have you describe a little bit about the school liaison office and how you support children with disabilities at JBSA.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. It's been an honor to be here today with you. JBSA actually has 35 military-connected school-age dependents, over 49 independent schools, which entails about 660 public schools and 200 private parochial schools over 9-county area across JBSA. JBSA School Liaison is committed to outreach, advocacy, and partnership initiatives that generate real-time solutions for our military families in grades pre-K through 12th around the globe. The School Age Liaison Program is exactly what it says. It's a liaison between the parent and the school district. On average, we have about 80 inbound to 100 outbound joint service members that come through. That all have individualized education services that have to have needs met. As far as working with our children and families with disabilities, we navigate those military families with children pre-K through 12th, and first they need to be diagnosed with a diagnosis.
Yes.
And then that school liaison actually partners with that family and is that liaison to get them figured out what school district they actually belong to in San Antonio. And then they pass them on to the actual school district, to the special education department, to the school counselors, and then turn it over to the actual school district that they are zoned for in their area of Joint Base San Antonio. If it's on the three installations or even outside the gate.
So how much success have you had? I mean, I taught high school, gosh, I think 15 years. So I'm familiar with the IEPs and a lot of the things, children with disabilities and services and so forth. But so how much do you see a smooth transition when they leave or when they come in with accepting their IEPs, or do you see this as part of the problem?
I see that as part of the problem. It needs to be smooth for the family member. From when they move from one installation to another, a lot of states have different requirements. So I think that's the problem that we run into, is that they're read differently. According to some of the parents I've talked to, some of the IEPs can be read differently from state to state.
So how do we make that better?
I think we have to get on the same page and maybe see how we can partner with other states to see how they can get that across the line, streamlined.
And so, Rory, is this a federal problem or a state problem, or both? Or both?
State and district mostly, and that's what I was going to ask him. Do you find that out of, you've got this whole 9-county swath, right?
Yes.
Is there a place that does it particularly well, and is it because their personnel are educated better about what military kiddos go through, or what do you see that works?
I would say all the districts really do really good with military families. Our 3 school liaisons that actually work at Joint Base San Antonio, they go out and educate our teachers on military life and military atmospheres and what these children go through and what military families go through. So I don't think there's one school district or the other that would actually do it, that does it very well. I think they do a great job.
So it sounds like part of this is an education piece, but then it's also the transferability of the services from one state to another, or one district to another, quite frankly. So we've got some work to do on that front.
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor.
And Amaryllis, I know that you have a teenager who's very excited for your new transition to a new location, perhaps. But could you tell us a bit about Chadwin's experience in the EFMP program and how his educational support services have worked for him?
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am, for the opportunity. Again, when people hear about Exceptional Family Member Program, they immediately think medical. And as you heard Ms. Frances, there's 3 components, right, under the EFMP. So one of them being the family support services. So one time I felt, actually when I first got here to San Antonio, I felt very frustrated. I thought my son was stuck. I thought something was wrong, right? So being able, I was able to reach out to the subject matter experts so that they understand the system. So being able to reach out to these people the subject matter expert that understand the system and how it works. It helped me understand the system and the options that I have for my son's education. So till today's day, I still utilizing the family support special education services because I think it has helped me, not only me, but my son with his education and also with different accommodations to accommodate his needs, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can see you're a strong mom.
Thank you.
I can see you fight for your kid.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amaryllis. I'd like to move on to Shaquilla to give us an overview of the child and youth services that are provided here. I know we have a huge population of military children here at Joint Base San Antonio. So could you tell us a bit about what you all are doing to support military children across your CYS programs?
So Joint Base San Antonio consists of child and youth services at 3 different locations. We have a total of 7 child development centers across Joint Base San Antonio. We have 3 school-age care programs, 3 youth programs, and we also have our family child care programs, all providing child care, quality child care to our families here at Jbsa. And so for the child and youth services, a way that we support our families that have been identified with a special need is creating that village. And that village is what we would say is our inclusion action team. And that inclusion action team is encompassed of subject matter experts. That would include our child and youth program professionals, our medical liaison here at the installation that provides that additional dive into what that diagnosis is, to include some training opportunities to our child and youth program staff. Another core team member of that village or that inclusion action team is our EF&P family support. We call upon our EF&P family support so that when we are sitting at a round table, pretty much having a meeting and discussing and deciding on what it is that we can and how we can accommodate and modify our environments in our child and youth programs. We also reach out to our school liaisons as that connection for the parents. When we're looking at maybe our school-age care children, they are that liaison that provides that additional support on the educational side. We also have our community child care coordinator. And when our programs are unable to accommodate in child and youth programs, depending on the severity of their disability or their need, we have our community child care coordinator who goes outside of our 4 walls of Jbsa and works with the family to find a viable child care option in the community. So we come together. We try to discuss how, again, we can support within our child and youth programs. And when we're unable to, we do have the additional support systems for the families as a resource to go out into the community to find that quality child care.
Well, that's pretty impressive, right?
Yep. I think one of the things that we hear as we sit down with military families, no matter where we go, is childcare is so important. And we know it's incredibly important to spouses so that they can work. It's incredibly important to our members so they can do shift work. So I think hearing about what you all are able to do here is fantastic. And we know there's always waiting lists everywhere we go, but I know we are all working really hard to increase capacity and provide those outside the gate services as well. I think that's a really impressive service to be offered. If it can't be done here, we can help you find it on the outside. Patty?
Shaquilla, I was wondering, we have the Child and Youth Behavioral Health MFLEX that are, placed in child care centers and school settings as well. I'm wondering if any of the MFLEX have been helpful to you or if you've added them to the team.
The military family life consultants are a huge part of our child and youth programs. They do support in the classrooms. Where we do find the challenges with those MFLEX is that it's more of a hands-off approach once a child has a diagnosis. Because once that child has a diagnosis, they're unable to then assist. So what we have been able to do at one of our installations is partner with our behavior medical facility and have a partnership with one of the behavior specialists that comes into our programs and assist with the hands-on, able to work with our staff, provide trainings to our staff, work with the children in the classrooms, but also then able to connect with that parent if they have the diagnosis or don't have a diagnosis. So that child that does have that disability, they are able to come in and assist. So the military family life consultants are a great resource. But again, once that child has that diagnosis, it becomes a shift in what they can and cannot do in support in our programs.
Absolutely. Well, Coral, you have a unique experience for most, but I realize we have someone else here who also has a unique experience in the same way. You are both a consumer of the EFMP program, but you also work in this space. So can you tell us a little bit about your family's experience, but also what it means to have EFMP families' voices heard within the services they provide?
Thank you for having me. So I guess the past is always a way to start forward. When my son was diagnosed, I had to learn a lot about his diagnosis at the same time that I was learning about how to advocate for him and what I needed to do, all the programs, all the services. This was 12 years ago, so of course information was not as readily available as we have it today. And the EFMP program was very different. So my experiences having to go through all of that at the same time of moving, figuring out and making sure that based on his diagnosis, all the services were available where we were and how to get them every time we would move and everything. I learned a lot. Then I went into the behavior analysis field, worked with a lot of military families, trying to share some of that experience and also guide them through that process as well. And when the opportunity came along to work with the EFMP program, I was so excited because it was my turn to give back everything that I had received from the program and also use my experiences to guide families where sometimes they come to us, to the family support group, and they say, oh, I have this concern. But I identify with that concern. I'm like, I know there's more to that than just this concern. So I am able to, now that we have so much information, kind of compress a little all the information and say, okay, just go here and look into this and look at this program or this service. So it's been an exciting journey to be able to give back and serve the military community the way that I was helped throughout my journey with my son.
If you could name one thing that you would want to see improvement on, what would that be?
Wow, a lot of things come to mind, but I think being able to reach out to families in a more individualized way, but without forgetting about everyone at the same time. It's a lot. It's a big job because we have a lot of families that we need to serve. But sometimes it's hard to reach out because of stigmas and because of past mistakes that have been made, and that families say, no, don't go there, or no, don't talk to them, or anything like that. It's that hurdle, passing that hurdle for them to see that we are really here to help. We are really here for you, for your family, to make sure that you receive what you need. So I think that's one thing that I would like to see families feel comfortable coming to us and seeing that we are really here to help.
Do you see the same thing?
I do, absolutely, yes. I mean, it's just what she just mentioned, the fact that we don't want to go there because we don't want to talk about some certain things. It just kind of put that barrier, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think it must be really comforting to families when they come to you, Coral, and see your empathy and lived experience in this space. because it could be scary, or they could have had a bad experience, and
Yes.
being met by a friendly face who says,
Yeah.
I've walked this path too, really means a lot.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the reasons we chose to come to San Antonio to talk about this is because we know it's Military City, USA, and San Antonio outside the gate does a lot for Joint Base San Antonio and military families. And Gordon, you're here today because you found a really innovative way to support not only San Antonio, but the military families who reside here. So could you tell us a bit about